Marcus Taylor's earliest memory was of water. He was 4 years old when his mother first took him to the public pool on a sunlit afternoon. He stood at the pool's edge, toes curled over the rough concrete, his heart pounding with excitement. Around him, children splashed and laughed, and he felt a tug of joy he had never known before. When he finally let himself slip into the cool blue water, it felt like he arrived home. In that moment, all his worries sank beneath the surface, and he discovered a world where he could move freely, as if he were flying. Growing up in a small town by the lake, Marcus spent every free moment in or near water. He learned to swim expertly at the local rec center, guided by patient coaches who saw his natural talent. Soon, he joined the youth swim team. He woke up before dawn for early practice, cutting through the mirror-smooth surface of the pool under pale morning light. His strokes were strong and sure, and it was clear he had real promise. Teachers and neighbors whispered that he might earn a college scholarship. In his bright swim cap and goggles, he felt proud and unstoppable. But Marcus's childhood was not all sunshine and clear skies. At home, he lived with his mother, single parent working 2 jobs to keep food on the table and their small rental house patched and warm. Money was tight, and most nights they ate beans and rice or pasta with plain sauce. Other kids at school sometimes asked why Marcus wore the same clothes so often. They did not know about bills left unopened, or the anger his mother hid in quiet tears. Some nights Marcus lay awake listening to raised voices through the thin walls. He wanted to help, but he was still a child himself. He learned early that life was not always fair, and that sometimes the people you love most need help you cannot give. Despite those hard times, the pool remained his refuge. When he swam, his troubles felt distant. He imagined racing under bright stadium lights, hearing the roar of a cheering crowd. He dreamed of leaving his small town, of earning a scholarship, of traveling to new places. Each lap brought him closer to that dream. His coach, Mrs. Franklin, had a way of believing in him so fully that sometimes Marcus believed it too. Praised his discipline and work ethic. She reminded him that talent was important, but heart and determination mattered even more. High school arrived, and with it, new challenges. Marcus did well academically, but he felt pressure to help at home. He took a part-time job after school stocking shelves at the local grocery store. Balancing work, schoolwork, and swim practices left him exhausted. Some nights he fell asleep at the kitchen table, head resting on his crossed arms. His mother would find him in the morning and gently lift him to bed. He loved her fierce kindness, and it reminded him why he pushed himself so hard in the pool. He wanted to give her a better life. During his junior year, Marcus's team competed in the state championships. He placed 3rd in the 200-meter freestyle and caught the eye of a scout from a small university. The scout praised his technique and offered him a partial scholarship. Marcus felt his dream was real within reach. He imagined himself wearing the school's colors and studying in a library full of new books. Could almost taste the possibility of a life beyond his small town's dusty streets. Then a sudden change upended everything. His mother lost her second job when the store cut hours, leaving her exhausted and stressed. The bills piled up and the landlord's notices became more frequent. Marcus did not have the heart to tell the swim coach that he could no longer afford the club fees. Guilt gnawed at him, and he made a choice he never thought he would. He quit the swim team to take on more hours at the grocery store. He thought it was a temporary step back, but once he left the team, life changed quickly. Without daily practice, his muscles weakened. His time slipped, and he lost the edge that had once made him stand out. He still swam sometimes in his free moments, diving into the lake on hot afternoons with a friend, but it was never the same. He swam with no coach's guidance, no structured drills, just the echo of what he had once been. He felt the water's embrace, but he missed the focused clarity of training. The dream he once chased slipped farther away. After graduation, Marcus did not go to college. Instead, he started full-time work at a nearby warehouse. The work was hard, but honest. Loading trucks, moving pallets, scanning items. He rose before dawn, clocked in at the warehouse gate, and spent the day lifting boxes under bright fluorescent lights. He learned to operate forklifts, to work quickly under pressure, and to solve problems on his feet. His coworkers respected his steady work ethic and reliable attitude. Once a week, they played basketball at a local rec hall, and Marcus joined in, using the speed and endurance he had built as a swimmer. But deep down, the pool called to him, even as he tried to bury that part of himself. Years passed, Marcus fell into a quiet routine. He rented a small apartment in town, furnished with a few thrift store finds and a second-hand couch. On weekends, he mowed his lawn, cleaned his apartment, and texted his mother to check in. They never spoke about the past scholarship or the swim meets. It was as if those memories belonged to someone else. Marcus told himself he was fine. He told other people he had found a steady job he liked. He told himself he did not need water to feel free. Still, sometimes he drove past the adult pool, where he trained in high school. He saw the old brick building and felt a quick sting in his chest. Sometimes he dreamed of the pool at night. Vivid dreams where he stood on the starting block, heart racing, the world silent except for his own breathing. Other times, he woke from those dreams feeling lost and hollow, though he tried to keep his past in a dusty corner of his mind. He never fully forgot how it felt to slice through water, stroke carrying him through a world that made sense. He never fully forgot the joy of moving as he chose, weightless and strong. Even as he stacked boxes in the warehouse, that memory gave him comfort. It whispered that he was more than a laborer, more than a man bound by work and debt. It reminded him that heroes are shaped by their choices in moments that demand courage, even if those moments come quietly, far from bright lights and cheering crowds. One day, as he loaded a pallet of canned goods, a daughter of a coworker asked him why. He was so calm under pressure. He shrugged and said, "I faced bigger fights." His coworker laughed and tossed him a basketball later that day. Marcus caught it and dribbled a few times, half smiling. But he did not tell anyone about the pool in his dreams or the way his heart still beat faster when he saw water. He kept those memories secret, locked away until the lake called to him. Again, when he would find that some moments demand all the courage you have. And in answering that call, you rediscover the person you were always meant to be. Marcus woke early that Saturday, the sky still pale with dawn light. He had the day off, and he felt a gentle pull in his chest as he remembered how rare that was. He ate a simple breakfast of toast and coffee, then decided to take a walk down to the lake. He had not been there in years, not since he quit the swim team and moved on with his life. The path to the water was lined with tall grass and wildflowers, and the air smelled fresh and clean. For a moment, Marcus felt his heart lift. He wondered if the lake remembered him. As he reached the water's edge, he noticed how still the surface was. A few early birds had already staked out spots with folding chairs and fishing poles. A mother and toddler sat on a blanket, the child playing with pebbles. A jogger ran past, greeting him with a soft wave. Marcus nodded back, feeling a quiet warmth spread through him. This place felt peaceful, unchanging. For a moment he let himself breathe deeply, filling his lungs with the scent of water and earth. He started to stroll along the shore, the soft sand cushioning each step. He thought about how the lake had been his refuge when he was young, the place he could escape to when the world felt heavy. He remembered the swim meets, the early mornings, and the thrill of cutting through cool water. But those memories felt distant now, like echoes from another life. Marcus had built a steady routine, one that kept his past locked away as he walked. His eyes drifted to a small cove where children often swam. The lifeguard station, a wooden tower painted bright red, stood quietly, its flag lowered. It was still early for lifeguard duty, but the heat of the sun promised a warm day ahead. Suddenly, Marcus heard shouting. He turned toward the sound and saw two small figures struggling in the water, their heads bobbing up and down. They were too far from shore for their parents to reach them quickly. Panic bloomed in Marcus's chest. He dropped his coffee cup on the sand, its contents steaming in the morning air. Without thinking, he kicked off his shoes and ran toward the water. His legs moved in a steady, practiced rhythm, muscles remembering the power they once held. He kicked off the bank and launched himself into the lake. The water closed over his head, cool and familiar. Instantly, he felt the old rhythm return his arms, slicing through the lake. His legs kicking strong and true. He sighted the children a few strokes away. Their small bodies were half submerged, arms flailing, mouths open in silent cries. Marcus reached them in seconds, though it felt slower in his mind, each moment stretched by urgency. He first reached the older one, a boy no older than 7 than the younger girl, maybe 5. They clung to him, their tiny bodies shivering with fear and cold. Marcus wrapped his arms around them, careful not to squeeze too tight, and guided them back toward the shore. Behind him, he could hear the rush of water and the calls from people on the bank. A few strong swimmers joined him, but Marcus led the way. He felt the weight of the children, their fear pressing against him like a tide. He forced himself to stay calm, to steady his strokes. In his mind, he repeated the drills he had learned years ago: keep your head low, breathe steadily, kick from the hips. Each move brought them closer to safety. When the shallows reached his knees, Marcus stood and lifted the children from the water. Their coats of hair clung to their heads, water dripping down their faces. A small crowd had gathered. Some people held towels, others knelt to wrap blankets around the shivering children. The mother, frantic tears streaming, rushed forward and took them in her arms. She hugged them tightly, her body shaking with relief. "Thank you," she whispered over and over, voice thick with emotion. She glanced up at Marcus, eyes shining. "You saved them. I don't know how to thank you." Marcus frowned. He had no words for heroism. He felt the old doubts rising in his mind. He was just a man who once swam well, nothing more. He shrugged, water dripping from his hair onto the sand. "I just did what anyone would do," he murmured. "But—" The woman shook her head. She reached into her beach bag and pulled out her phone. "Please, let me get your name," she said. "I want to thank you properly." Marcus looked around. Eyes from the crowd had fixed on him, some curious, some grateful. A man in a baseball cap held a camera phone, recording the moment. The lifeguard station stood empty, the red tower a silent witness. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He realized this moment would not stay here by the lake. It would travel, spreading through phone screens and news reports. He gave the woman his name, Marcus Taylor. His voice felt strange, as if he were trying on someone else's identity. She typed it into her phone, then smiled and pressed. "Send," Marcus mumbled. "I should get going," and turned to leave. The cold water and the attention made his skin prickle. Did not want to stay. He climbed out of the water and reached for his shoes. His legs felt weak, with sudden exertion catching up with him. Someone offered him a towel. He thanked them and wrapped it around his shoulders. The damp fabric felt comforting and strange. He pulled on his shoes and started back up the path. At first, the crowd watched him in silence. Then someone called, "Out, thank you, man." Others echoed the sentiment, and a few clapped. Marcus kept his head down and walked faster. He felt eyes on his back, a mix of admiration and curiosity. His mind raced. He wondered how many cameras had caught his face. He wondered what this would mean for his quiet life. He reached the end of the path and turned a corner. The crowd did not follow. He slowed his pace, heart still pounding. He sank onto a bench under a tall oak tree and let the silence wash over him. The wind whispered through the leaves, and the lake lay smooth in the distance. Marcus took a deep breath and felt the tremor in his hands. He thought of the twins, safe now in their mother's arms. He thought of the water that had carried him to them. For the first time in years, he felt that old connection deep in his chest, the sense that he belonged in the water, that this was part of who he was. He had hidden that part of himself for so long, burying it beneath work and routine. Now it rose up stronger than ever. He sat on the bench until the sun climbed higher, warming his back. He watched other families arrive, children running toward the lake with excited shouts. He realized he had done something important, something that mattered. And though he still felt the heat of attention, a quiet voice inside him said, this moment was just the beginning. When he finally stood, he brushed off the towel and started to walk away. He did not know where he was heading, but he felt a spark of purpose. He knew his life would change because of what he had done. He did not yet know how, but he understood that the lake had called him back, and he had answered. And in answering that call, he had rediscovered a piece of himself he thought was lost forever. ChatGPT said, "News of Marcus's rescue spread through the town like ripples on water." That evening, as he drove home from his shift at the warehouse, he saw his face on a billboard by the highway. The local news channel had flashed a still image of him holding the little girl, her arms wrapped around his neck. The headline read, "Local hero saves twins from drowning." Marcus felt his heart pound. He eased off the gas and blinked hard, not sure he was ready to face that version of himself. When he pulled into his driveway, his phone buzzed without end. Messages from old friends, coworkers, even distant relatives he had not heard from in years poured in. Everyone told him how proud they were. Some asked if he would give interviews. Others said they had shared the video of his rescue. Marcus stared at the screen and swallowed. He had never been comfortable in the spotlight, and suddenly the whole town seemed to want a piece of him. The next morning, a reporter from the local newspaper knocked on his door. Marcus had warned his mother about the call, but when she answered, her eyes widened with surprise. "Marcus, there's someone here to see you," she called. He walked into the living room wearing his work shirt and jeans and saw the reporter standing with a notepad. The reporter introduced herself as Ms. Nguyen and asked if he would share his story.
Marcus hesitated.
He worried he would say the wrong thing. Gently, he agreed to talk. Ms. Nguyen sat on the edge of the couch, pen in hand. Marcus sat next to her, hands folded in his lap. He told her about his childhood by the lake, about learning to swim with nothing but hope in his heart. He told her about quitting competitive swimming to help his mother. He spoke of the moment he saw the children and felt the old swimmer rise inside him. When he finished, Ms. Nguyen smiled softly and said, "Thank you for sharing. This will inspire many." Marcus nodded and left before she could ask more. Within hours, the newspaper published a feature, a full column with a large photo of Marcus in the water. The next day, the story appeared on the front page of the online news site. Comments flooded in praising him, and many readers wrote about their own near-drowning experiences. Marcus read some of the comments late at night and felt a strange mix of pride and exhaustion. He closed his laptop and lay in bed, thinking that in one short morning his life had become something he had not planned for. A few days later, an email arrived from the coach of the nearby college swim team. The coach, Coach Ramirez, wrote that he had seen the story and recognized the swimmer in the video. He remembered Marcus's talent and offered him a chance to train with the college team. He said the program had scholarships available and that Marcus deserved an opportunity he had lost long ago. Marcus read the message 3 times. She sat across the room, her eyes bright. He felt tears sting his own. That afternoon, Marcus called Coach Ramirez. The coach's voice crackled with enthusiasm over the phone. He explained the offer: free access to the college pool, training with certified staff, and help with tuition if Marcus decided to return to school. Marcus thanked him and told him he needed time to think. After he hung up, he walked outside and looked at the sky. He remembered waking up hours before sunrise for swim practice, and the sky painted with pink clouds. He remembered feeling alive in a way he did not feel now. Then another message arrived, this one from a sportswear company. They had seen him in the rescue video and wanted him to model for their new swim gear line. They said his story fit with their brand's message of courage and strength. They offered to send him samples and pay him for a photo shoot at the lake. Marcus stared at the offer and shook his head. Modeling was the last thing he expected. He worried he did not look like a model. He worried everyone would laugh, yet he also felt the flicker of excitement. A small voice inside him said, "This could be fun." On the day of the photo shoot, Marcus drove to the edge of the lake where it all began. The sun glowed low in the sky, and a breeze rippled the water's surface. A small crew waited on the shore. They greeted him with smiles and handed him swim trunks and a branded shirt. Marcus felt awkward in front of the camera at first. He stood by the water, arms at his sides, unsure where to look. But the photographer said, "Just remember why you're here. You saved those kids. You're a hero." Marcus closed his eyes, then walked into the water and swam a few strokes. The camera clicked. He felt like himself again. After the shoot, the crew thanked him and said the images would appear in ads online and on billboards. Marcus drove home. In the fading light, feeling both tired and strangely proud, he wondered who he had become. He had traded his quiet life for a storm of attention. He had answered the lake's call and unleashed forces he hardly understood. He hoped he could navigate this new world without losing the part of himself that mattered most. At work, his co-workers greeted him with applause. They hung small signs by his locker that said "Our Hero" and patted him on the back. Marcus smiled and said thanks, but inside he felt a restless tug. He liked their praise, but he also missed the simple days when no one paid attention. He missed feeling that the only true play he had was in the pool under early morning light. Evening, he sat alone on his balcony, looking at the stars. He thought about the coach's offer, thought about modeling. He thought about his mother, struggling to pay bills. He felt the weight of choices pressing on him. Should he return to swimming? Should he go back to school? Or should he work extra shifts and keep life simple? He closed his eyes and let the cool breeze wrap around him. In the silence, he heard the soft memory of water, the rush of each stroke, the glide beneath the surface, the steady rhythm of his heart in the pool. He knew he needed time to decide, but he also knew that his life had changed forever. The boy who once swam for joy was now a man with new responsibilities and opportunities, and he had to find a way to move forward, stroke by stroke, just like he had always done. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed late that night, the room dim, except for the glow of his phone screen. He had spent hours going over the offers he'd received. The college coach wanted him back in the pool. The swimwear company wanted him. In ads, local news crews had asked for more interviews. His inbox overflowed with messages of praise, but none of those words eased the knot in his chest. He felt torn between the life he knew and the possibilities he could barely imagine. The next morning, Marcus threw on his work uniform and drove to the warehouse. The early sunlight warmed his face through the windshield. He parked in his usual spot and clocked in without a word. His co-workers greeted him with smiles and cheers, but he nodded quietly, lifted boxes and loaded pallets, muscle memory guiding his movements. Yet his mind wandered back to the lake. He pictured the water's surface, the feel of cool liquid sliding past his fingers. He missed that weightless freedom. During his lunch break, he sat alone in the break room, sliding a ham sandwich across the table. He stared at the college coaches. Email on his phone. It said they had a spot for him on the swim team, a chance to finish his degree. His stomach fluttered. He thought of his mother, who had dreamed of seeing him in college. He thought of the bills that still piled on her kitchen counter. He thought of the steady pay he earned now. The choice felt enormous. After work, he walked to the community pool, where he had once trained with his high school team. The building looked the same. Red brick walls, tall windows, and blue tile around the pool deck. The water glimmered under the indoor lights. He paused at the door, heart hammering. He had not set foot inside in years. He remembered Coach Franklin's voice, guiding him, correcting his form, praising his effort. He wondered if he still had that strength. He bought a day pass and walked onto the pool deck. The air smelled of chlorine and warm tile. A few swimmers practiced in lanes, their echoing splashes breaking the quiet. Marcus changed into his old swim trunks and stood at the shallow end. He lowered himself into the water and felt it close, around his body like a welcome hug. He moved to the lane lines and pushed off the wall. His first stroke was stiff, as if his arms remembered a dance they had not practiced in years. But soon his body found the rhythm. He glided through the water, each stroke breathing life into his tired muscles. At first he swam slowly, focusing on technique. He counted strokes and kicks, tuning into the familiar drill. As his muscles warmed, he picked up speed. He swam longer sets, feeling his lungs burn and his heart pound. With every lap he remembered who he was before life had pulled him away. By the end of his practice, he felt alive in a way he hadn't in a long time. He climbed out of the pool, water dripping down his back, and realized tears were on his cheeks. He had rediscovered a piece of himself, That evening he sat at his kitchen table with his mother. She placed a bowl of soup in front of him, and he felt heat rise in his cheeks. They had not spoken about his swim that day. She settled across from him, hands folded on her lap. He looked at her and took a deep breath. "Mom," he said softly, "I swam today." She smiled, eyes shining. "I knew you would," she said. He told her about the practice, how it felt to be back in the water. She listened quietly, then reached across the table and squeezed his hand. He closed his eyes and let himself feel hopeful again. Over the next week, Marcus's balanced warehouse shifts with pool workouts. He started early mornings before work, sliding into the pool under dawn's pale light. He channeled his old discipline into training, following the drills the college coach had sent. He pushed himself through sets of freestyle, backstroke, and butterfly. After long days at the warehouse, he returned to the water, muscles aching, but spirit lifted. He felt the weight of exhaustion, but it was a good kind of tired proof that he was moving forward. Meanwhile, the swimwear company scheduled a second photo shoot on the lake shore. This time they wanted to film a short video of Marcus swimming and speaking about courage. He stood before the camera, heart racing, and spoke about his rescue and what the water meant to him. He talked about how a single act of bravery had brought him back to his true self. The words felt raw, but he spoke them with honesty. When they filmed him gliding through the water, he felt strength in every stroke. He wondered if his story might inspire someone else to find their own courage. As word spread about his return to training, some old friends reached out. A few invited him to meet for coffee. Others asked if they could join him for a lap or two. He found himself reconnecting with people he had not spoken to in years. He realized he had been hiding from his past, but now he wanted to share it. He saw how his journey could help others know that it is never too late to follow your dreams. One evening after a hard practice, he sat on the pool deck and rubbed his shoulders. Coach Ramirez approached him with a clipboard. The coach smiled and said that they were impressed with his comeback pace. He said the college team had a spot for him this fall and asked if he was ready to commit. Marcus felt a rush of emotion. He closed his eyes and pictured the starting block in a big arena, the crowd's roar, the feel of cool water against his skin. He opened his eyes and nodded. "Yes," he said, voice firm. "I'm ready." That night, Marcus called his mother. His voice cracked with joy when he told her he accepted the scholarship. She cried softly on the other end and whispered, "I am so proud of you." He felt tears fill his own eyes. He realized that the choice he had once feared was not just about him. It was about the love that had carried him through hard times, the dream that had never truly left him, and the children whose lives he had saved. He was becoming the man he was always meant to be, and he understood that his life would never be the same again. The morning sun was soft and pale. The day Marcus stood on the starting block at the national swim meet, he felt a gentle tremor in his legs as he looked out at the sparkling pool below. The water lay calm, like a sheet of glass, waiting for him. He breathed in the warm air and let his mind settle. All around him, the stadium roared with excitement. Flags from different countries fluttered in the breeze. Cameras clicked. He felt the weight of his country's colors on his swim cap and suit, and he realized how far he had come from that first quiet morning by the warehouse. Carrying boxes instead of dreams, Marcus placed his toes on the edge of the block and leaned forward. His heart pounded, but he was not afraid. He thought of his mother back home, her gentle smile when he told her he would swim again. He thought of the twins he rescued, their small faces pressed against his shoulder in relief. He thought of every early morning in the pool, every ache in his muscles, every doubt he conquered. All of it had led him to this moment. The referee's whistle blew, sharp and clear. Marcus curled his fingers over the edge and closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. Then he exploded forward. The world became a blur of water and movement. He cut through the surface with a perfect dive, arms slicing into the cool water. Immediately, he felt the familiar rush, his body weightless and strong. Kicked powerfully, and his arms moved in a steady rhythm. Each stroke carried him closer to the other end of the pool, and with each breath, he felt more alive. He remembered his first race as a child, for life's troubles had dimmed his spirit. He remembered the joy of speed and the thrill of competition. He felt that joy again now, mingled with a deep calm. He had been shaped by hardship and fear, but he refused to be defined by them. Instead, he let each stroke carry him forward, rewriting his story with every breath. When he touched the wall, at the turn, he spun and pushed off, diving deep before breaking the surface. In those moments underwater, he felt pure freedom. He imagined he was flying, the tiles above him shimmering like stars. Then he broke through again, arms reaching, legs kicking, heart steady. He knew his time would be good. He could feel the energy of the crowd, but he focused only on his own rhythm, his own breathing. As he neared the final strokes, his body burned with effort, but he welcomed the pain. It reminded him of every sacrifice he had made, early mornings, long days at the warehouse, the nights he lay awake wondering if he was making the right choice.
Ow.
Those sacrifices felt worthwhile. He stretched his arm forward and touched the wall for the last time. He kicked until he felt the edge. Then he lifted his head. The crowd's roar washed over him like a wave. He climbed out of the pool, water dripping from his cap, and looked up at the scoreboard. His name flashed in bright letters, followed by his time. He closed his eyes, heart pounding. He had done it. He had won first place. Tears blurred his vision, but he blinked them away and looked toward the stands. He saw his mother standing in the crowd, her face radiant with pride. She waved her arms, calling his name. Marcus felt a surge of joy, raised his hand in response, then stepped onto the winner's podium. They draped a medal around his neck and lifted the national flag. As the anthem played, Marcus stood tall, his chest swelling. He felt the world hold its breath for him, celebrating every stroke that had brought him here. After the ceremony, reporters gathered around him again. But this time, Marcus was ready. He spoke calmly, his voice clear and steady. He talked about the power of perseverance, about answering life's calls even when they seemed distant. He spoke of the lake that had rescued his spirit and the twins who had rescued his courage. He hoped his story would show others that it is never too late to find your path, that one act of kindness can open new doors. A few weeks later, Marcus traveled to schools and community centers. He wore his medal and carried a simple message. Dreams are worth chasing, even when life seems to push you away. In each room, he saw young faces light up as he shared his story. Some children looked at him with wide eyes, imagining themselves standing where he once stood. Others approached him afterward, shyly asking how they could learn to swim or how they could overcome their own fears. Marcus answered each question with kindness, encouraging them to take small steps one stroke at a time. He returned off into the lake where the rescue had happened. The spot where he dove in that morning was now marked with a small plaque, placed by the mother of the twins, thanking him for his bravery. Marcus touched the plaque gently and smiled. He walked to the water's edge and stood there, feeling the breeze and the wildflowers at his feet. He closed his eyes and listened to the lapping of the water. This place had given him a second chance. It had reminded him who he was and who he could become. Some days he still swam in the community pool, but more often he practiced in the lake itself, set markers for laps and used them as he would in a pool. The freedom of open water thrilled him. He felt connected to nature and to his own heart. He loved the way the sun danced on the waves and the way the water carried him forward. He often met new swimmers, their children learning with their parents, older people testing their strength. Marcus taught them what he had learned: proper breathing, steady kicks, and how to trust the water. One summer evening, a group of schoolchildren visited the lake with their teacher. They gathered around Marcus as he emerged from the water, each wearing goggles and swim caps. He showed them how to hold their bodies in the water, how to kick from the hips, and how to stay calm. He watched their faces fill with delight as they glided through the lake for the first time. He saw the same joy he had felt as a boy, standing on the pool's edge, heart pounding with hope. He realized that teaching others was as rewarding as any medal. It made him feel part of something bigger. In quiet moments, Marcus reflected on the twists his life had taken. A simple decision to dive into the lake to save two children had led him back to his true self. He had traded fear for courage, silence, for a voice that could inspire. He had left behind the man who stacked boxes in a warehouse every day and embraced the man who raced on blocks under stadium lights. He had discovered that sometimes the greatest victories come not in solitude, but through the connections we make and the lives we touch. On the anniversary of that rescue, the town held a small ceremony at the lake. Neighbors gathered under banners and balloons, children played on the shore, and the twins, now 8 years old, ran to him, arms outstretched. Their mother hugged him tight. Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest. He looked out at the water, the same water that had once carried him to 2 frightened children and then carried him back to himself. He smiled and raised his medal high. He spoke briefly to the crowd, offering thanks. Then he dove into the lake, cutting through the surface in a perfect arc. He swam out to the buoy marking the rescue spot and paused, letting the water hold him. He lifted his face to the sun and felt a deep peace. In that moment, he knew he had found his purpose. He had learned that life's greatest gifts can come when you answer a call, no matter how small or unexpected it may seem. As Marcus swam back, he carried with him the echoes of cheers, the faces of children learning to swim, and the memory of a mother's grateful tears. He carried the promise of new beginnings and the knowledge that one brave act can change everything. And he knew that wherever life's currents might take him next, he would always return to the water, his home, his teacher and his greatest joy.